beginning.
All right, welcome to the Grief Dreams podcast. My name is Sean Ram alongside Dr. Joshua Black. Beautiful, beautiful time of the year. It's summer and we get to enjoy being outside. And in Canada, that is a rare thing to do. So it's only 4 months, people. But thank you for tuning in, for listening, all our listeners all across the world, and especially today, our listeners in Australia. We have one of your citizens on the podcast, and she's brave enough to come on and share her life and her story. So we have on today Nikki Wilson, and she is full-time at the electricity company while also studying full-time at the University of Melbourne. She will be graduating with a Bachelor of Environment degree, currently in her final semester. While in university, she had been taking creative writing classes as elective subjects. And this semester, she had been writing for a nonfiction class and decided to write about grief dreams after having personal experiences with them. She finds the subject very interesting as there is not a lot of research on the topic, and she's wanting to further her writing career after graduation. Nikki, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
It was amazing that you reached out to me and just asked some questions about grief dreams because of your assignment. I thought we had an amazing conversation, and you allowed me to actually read what you were writing, which I thought was really cool and special for me to be able to see this. And did you finally finish the paper?
I did, yes. I submitted it about 2 months ago. So it took me like 14 drafts, but I got there.
Nice. What was that process like for you, like writing it down? Did it like bring up some stuff?
Yeah, it did, especially about like my friend and my stepsister because it was so long ago. I guess I didn't realize I was still holding on to a lot of undealt with emotion. So it was very hard when I was just going through and living through the events again.
Yeah, I noticed that too when you're writing, and so some of your dreams weren't always so positive, and so you can see there was a lot there, and we'll talk about the losses too. But yeah, I was really honored to have read it and for you to sort of reach out and share your dreams with me. So I just want to say thank you, and thank you for doing some research too, because it wasn't just like you just did it. You were actually searching for some stuff out there to make sense of the topic as you're writing it.
Yeah, it was really hard to actually find research on it. You were the only person that I could actually find, so I was just really glad to find someone who was actually researching it.
That's nice. And so have you got your mark back yet?
Yeah, I did. I actually did pretty well, and she told me to publish it, but I'm not sure if I want to.
That's so exciting. That's amazing. You could actually do like some deep, grief work, right? And write it on paper, and then someone to actually then give you a nice grade. That's the best feeling at the end of it all, because there said like there was a lot of emotions involved in that. And it said it's scary sometimes opening up to a stranger.
Yeah, definitely. I was very nervous. I had to share it with my class as well. So everyone read it in front of me, and then we talked about it. So it was a good experience, though.
Wow. So what was that like?
Yeah.
That's a different story, because usually when we do essays, we just like submit it and then we get a mark back from the TA or prof. So yeah, they actually read it? Your class read it?
Yeah. So with like the creative writing classes, we have like a workshop. So you bring your work in that you're working on, and then everyone reads it and they edit it for you, and they tell you like what you can do better, what's not working, and what's working.
Oh man, that would be a little bit daunting, no? Because it would be tough, I guess. But I bet your teacher probably structures it so people aren't criticizing like randomly. They're kind of like looking at things you've already talked about.
Yeah. And if there's anything like sensitive or something like that, we can tell them before we start workshopping it. So it's not too bad. And the class was really supportive, so it was good.
What kind of feedback did you get from your classmates?
I think everyone was a bit hesitant to actually critique it because it was such like a personal issue, but everyone found it really interesting, like especially the research on grief dreams, because there's a few other people who had experienced it as well, but obviously it's something that you don't talk about because people just think you're insane. So yeah.
Well, that's why we got you on the podcast, to sort of say you're not insane. This is a thing, and it's like most people have these dreams, just they don't talk about it. So that's kind of cool. People said that they had the experience themselves. Did you ever end up chatting with them about their dreams?
No, not really. They just sort of were like, "Oh yeah, I've experienced that as well."
Wow. That's well, I'm glad it all went well, and said like, and you had this extra thing of almost sharing. It's almost like sharing your grief to a general audience, which most people don't get a chance to do. And so really you get to do it again. So that was your practice round. So this is the real thing on the podcast now.
Yeah, exactly.
a little prep work. I got a quick question actually, before we really get into your losses and a little bit of your life. I recently saw a post about a spider in Australia called I think it's the huntsman spider. Do
Yep.
you know of this spider?
Do you know any?
Do you know any?
We get them a lot, but they're not dangerous, so it's fine.
Oh, okay, because then the
You
post
just whack them with a shoe or something.
That's it, eh? Because I saw the post and it was like, what was it about? It was about a guy who took a photo in a cabin of the huntsman spider above his door eating a small possum. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Oh, okay. Ours on that too. So
Have people in Australia learned to conquer their fear of spiders? Like, how do you guys live there?
we don't see them that much. So
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you don't see them that much, but it's just the idea. Like for me, where I live in Canada, we don't really have any poisonous spiders. I've heard of some black widow sightings, but it's very, very rare, and usually in like BC, British Columbia. But I think we have a little bit of a safety nest because we don't have those type of dangerous poisonous spiders. But in Australia, I think you have a few of them. So like, I don't get it. I don't get how you don't have some people who are just constantly in fear. Tell me.
I don't know. I know a few people who are afraid of spiders, but like there's not spiders everywhere. Like I'm from a rural area, so we had like a few like redbacks, if you know what they are, things like that. But you
sound
don't,
dangerous.
I don't know. Yeah.
All right, so I guess you're used to it, and you're like, you know what? There's obviously a lot of other poisonous things here, so why discriminate? You can also be scared of snakes.
Exactly. There's a lot more snakes.
Man, it's you know what though? It's a beautiful place. I haven't been there, but from what I hear, and I think we're more similar than we are different. That fact alone, I probably would only visit, maybe not live there, but I think I love the country, and I love talking to all our Australian, New Zealand, South Pacific fans.
All right, so now we talked about spiders. Well, I just wanted to mention that because I recently saw that, and then I also one of the scariest scenes I've ever seen in a movie is in Lord of the Rings, where those big spiders come down. I don't know if have you seen that movie?
I haven't seen it. I've seen the Harry Potter one though, where all the spiders come out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's equally as scary.
Okay.
Actually. Remember we saw that? We saw that recently. Yeah, with the spider that talks and its children. That was creepy. But for me, for a lot of older people, I'm sure the classic scary spider movies, Arachnophobia. Have you seen that? Probably not.
No.
Josh, you've seen that? No. Arachnophobia? Oh man, listeners. Only we can talk about this, but like it is a scary, scary movie. I think John Candy's in it. I'm not really sure, but that created the fear, I think. But I think there's something innate in us. But anyways, let's move on. Let's keep this show rolling.
All right. So are you officially done now, or when does your school semester actually end?
I've just finished one semester, and I start again in I think 2 weeks, and it's my final semester.
Oh, no way!
I'll be done forever.
Forever? So you're not going on to do your MA or anything?
I'm thinking about it, but I think I'll apply and then defer for a year and just see if I still want to do it later.
I think that's really smart. Yeah, because like life changes you, and as you get out there and see what you want. Like for me, it was daunting. After I finished my undergrad, I tried to figure out. I thought, I got an undergrad degree. I'm going to conquer the world and get like any job I want. And then I came to the stark reality. It's not the case. They sold me on the lie. And so with that, I had like a lot of. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, to tell you the truth. Also, so. I waited 2 years, and then within that time, that's when I started working with the bereaved, and they told me about their dreams, and so I decided to do an MA after that, and then here I am with a PhD now on the topic. So Yeah, it's amazing what even a year can do on give you guidance on what you want to do and where you want to go in life. So yeah, hopefully it's like that you get to figure that out. But you said you want to do creative writing when you're done.
Yeah, I do really like writing, but I just don't know if I can make a career out of it. So I feel like I should just sort of keep it as a side project for a while. Yeah, until I decide what I want to do, I guess.
Mm. Yeah, well, what's your degrees in environmental studies, right?
Yeah.
And
So I'm studying environmental geography. So it's mostly like sustainability and climate change and things like that.
So why'd you get into that? Like all the things like why'd you choose that?
I guess I've always been really interested in it, but career-wise, I feel like there's not a lot of job opportunities now, unless I want to go to like an NGO or something like that. But it's really competitive as well, so I just don't really know what I want to do yet.
Right, this is life. This is our journey, right? We're trying to figure things out as we go. And you said some people on the podcast have careers and have this direction, but not everyone in life has that. And we talked to a bunch of people who have like 5 careers in their life that they keep switching because they change and then maybe their job gets boring. But I have faith that you'll figure this out, and it won't be as scary as maybe what I went through in the sense of feeling so lost, because I was like almost like taken back by it because I didn't really sort of have a goal moving forward, because my dad just died too. So there's like the double header there. But yeah, so at the end, I hope you can do something with it at the end of the day, because you spent, how long was it, 4 years that you're spending so far in university?
Technically, but because I've been working full time as well, some semesters I only did like 2 subjects. So it's been like 6 years for me to finish it.
I think that's I was reading through your bio and obviously just talking to you now. I think that's a great move that you're doing, working as you're going to school, because if one thing that it teaches you, it'll teach you what you'll be able to focus in on what you like to do and what you don't like to do. Because you're working at kind of a regular job, right? At the electric company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a bit different in America. I don't think do you have electricity retailers?
That's a good question. Like, what do they do? Like different type of just utility offices?
You know how you sort of choose your phone plan?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that, but electricity.
Okay. So in Canada, that's already determined for us. So they'll say something like, "Oh, these 2 cities are controlled by this electric company." So they've determined that already, but they do change based off region. So for you guys, you actually select.
Yeah, so we have different retailers. So I work for a retailer. So basically we have like different prices. So we compete against other retailers basically.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. I mean, look, I think a job like that, because you're going to obviously have a lot of things that you don't like about that job, but there might be some things that you do, and you can take that with you. And that becomes kind of like your resume, if you will, of what you like to do. And then keeping with these projects, you don't have to get serious about creative writing or anything else, but like do it just to develop your skill and your craft and be passionate about it and do it for fun, because you never know what can come out of that if you keep doing it. And then just don't give up that dream and be patient, because again, you're still young. You're 23. I'm still figuring it out. So I think at that time, it's hard because you're at that age. So it's hard to kind of be patient, because you're like, I'm old. I'm 23. But like, again, when you turn to my age and you're 35, you look back and you're like, wow, I had so much time that I could have done that if I was 23. But hey, I think you're doing it, and you obviously made some bold steps and some great decisions, and here you are on this podcast, growing up as we speak.
Yeah, I don't know. I definitely feel like I don't have time. So I agree with that. But
Well, you know what makes you feel like that? Because you got bills to pay, and that's the terrible thing about life, is that we have to pay these bills. But again, props to you, because you're out there working. You're doing both, and hey, my hat goes off to all the young people out there today who have to do that, and I think it's good for them. because it'll develop some skills that'll help them down the road. But it's unfortunate that they can't just focus on school. But at the end of the day, we've got to look at the silver lining.
Yeah, definitely.
And so when we talked before, you mentioned, or even just reading your paper that you wrote, you mentioned you've had a couple losses throughout your life, and really early on. I think the first one were you around like 17, I believe. And so can we talk about maybe some of those losses and maybe like the relationship you had with those people?
Yeah. So I guess my first, sorry, I'm losing my voice. My first real experience was when I was in year 11 at school, so I was 17. I was at boarding school, and when you get really sick and you can't stay in the sick bay anymore, you get sent home. So one of my friends, she was really sick, so she went home, which was perfectly normal. But then one day we all got called into like the hall where we had assemblies, and they told us that she had cancer and it was too late, and there was nothing they could really do about it. So yeah, like about a week or so later, she was actually dating one of the girls in the house that I was in. So I just heard her crying, and I knew what had happened. So that was my first experience, and we're both really young as well.
And what was that like hearing it? Because you didn't get, like, you heard it from the school, which is weird, rather than like the person or something else. So was it weird for like the people in the school to be like to know that? Like I've
Yeah,
never, because I've never like heard like someone calling I'm not sure what boarding school have that's different from the schools we have, but like I've never heard that before. Like they really stop what's going on and say, hey, this is what's going on to a student here.
I think it was just more like shock. Like it's hard to believe that it's happening. And in a boarding school environment, like you have what's called a house mum. So they're basically like your parents. So it's not like you can hear it off the parent or someone within the family because they're obviously already grieving. So at least it was good that everyone was together. Like you had a lot of friends that were going through the same thing. But because we were so young, and I guess with grief, there's this kind of expectation that you don't grieve for too long and you kind of just pick yourself up and keep going. It was very hard.
And what was the person's name that died?
Taylor.
And so, like, how do you remember Taylor? Like, what was your relationship like with her?
When I started at school, I was in year 9, so I was like 14. So she was one of my closest friends. And the weird thing is now, like, my strongest memory is we had to do like work experience. So everyone else went home, but I stayed in the boarding house because I was doing work experience around there with Taylor. And I just remember she was just really sick, like pretty much the whole time we were doing work experience. So it's strange that that's like my strongest memory of her now. But yeah, we were pretty close. And then I guess towards year 11, we kind of drifted apart as you do in high school. So I guess there was also that idea that, well, I don't really deserve to grieve because I wasn't as close to her as other people were.
Did you like minimize your grief because of that? Because you thought that because you weren't as good as friends as you used to be, that you shouldn't have this like this suffering?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think I didn't really deal with it until I went to her funeral. And that was probably like the biggest shock to me. And that was actually when I had like the first dream about her. I think I just had a lot of trouble understanding that she was actually dead. Like she wasn't here anymore. Even at the funeral, I was like, this just isn't real. Like even seeing her coffin, and like her mum thought it would be a good idea for all of us to go up and sign the coffin. So as I was doing that, I think that's when it all hit me, because I was right there dealing with like the idea that she was in the coffin.
So what, you just like signed your name on the coffin?
Yeah, it was kind of strange. Like it was a nice idea, but for a 17-year-old, that was like very confronting, I guess. So I just like wrote this little message about this book series we used to read. We used to say it to each other all the time. So I just left that quote on there for her.
And so what was that quote?
I love you like Dimitri loves Rose.
What's that mean? I don't know Dimitri.
It's this book series. You've probably never heard of it. I think it's called Vampire Academy or something. It's not very good, but we were like obsessed with it.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's that's a tough thing to really take in when you're young. It's a very hard thing because you've got a lot of other stuff going on, a lot of growing up to do, and kids have exciting futures and they're looking forward, and they're so a lot of them are innocent at that age, but when death comes, it brings you back into it introduces you into a different world, like it throws you into that adult world, really. And it just but it sucks. I wish kids and young people didn't have to go through that. Unfortunately, it is a reality. I remember when I was in grade 9 at my school, Sir Winston, and we had a student. His name was Stephen Arado, and he was crossing the street. He was really thin and frail, and he had this really heavy book bag, and he was crossing the street, and this car just went too fast and crashed into him, and he died. And I went to his funeral, and it was very, yeah, it's very real. And when you're a kid at 16, 17, and again, you don't it's a new world. I saw his family mourning, everybody around him, and it just put into perspective, like, hey, this was just a kid, this was just a person. He was loved by his family. People cared for him. So I definitely feel what you went through. Do you think about her to this day?
Yeah, sometimes I think that I still see her, which is really weird. Like, I'll be sitting on a tram and I'll see someone that looks like her, and I'll be like, oh, it's Taylor. And like for like a second, I actually forget that it just can't be her, and then I like remember it all again.
Yeah, I hear that a lot from people. They said like it's there are people that do look like I there's people that look like my dad, right? Like just the way he was. And it's almost like when you squint, you get more detail. You're like, oh no, that's not him. But they look so similar. So you're like almost wishing it was in a way. But yeah, that is sad because I'm like the moment you realize it can't be or it's not, then you're acknowledging the loss over again, which can be difficult.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
for the funeral, was it an open casket or was it a closed casket?
It was closed.
Okay.
So I couldn't actually see her in there, but I think that actually made it harder because I don't know, I've just always had like such a hard time believing that she's not there, I guess.
I think that makes sense. I think that's the positive of having an open casket is for people to understand that who's in there, because it's really just a box that someone's saying someone's in there, but we sometimes need to just verify ourselves. And so my dad's was an open casket. And as much as it was good to see him, it's also a little different too, seeing someone that's dead. It's one of the first times. And so like for you, is that, because I remember you shared the dream, so I'm guessing this relates to your dream a lot in the sense of the imagery. Can you share the dream that you had soon after this?
Yeah, so we were all on a minibus back to the boarding school after her funeral. So I fell asleep and I dreamt that her friends were like lifting her casket and carrying it down the middle of the church, like they were carrying her away. And then I don't remember it exactly, but someone tripped and fell and the casket like opened up. But instead of, I was like fully braced for her body to come out, but it wasn't her. It was like a mannequin, and just the head just rolled out. And then I just jolted awake after that.
Wow, that's wild. That probably confirms what Josh was saying in terms of like, maybe you just didn't have the full resolution around it. Like again, like there is something to seeing. I saw, yeah, I saw all of my dead relatives when I went to their funerals, their bodies, and it did add closure, something to it, right? Like you see them for the last time. It's kind of like, I guess, if you didn't have last words with someone, that you'd have that regret, or like, oh, I wish they were positive and not negative. So I think for me personally, that was something that I kind of clued into. And then yeah, that dream's wild. The
Yeah, it
casket
was so weird.
falls. What'd you think when the mannequin come out? You're just like shocked?
Yeah, I think I was just shocked, but I was also a bit scared. I don't know, it was so strange because like at that time, obviously I was young and I couldn't really understand what it meant. But now looking back on it, I'm like, it was just because I hadn't processed it. Like I hadn't realized she was actually gone, and I was still not believing that she was gone.
Did you ever ask anyone or tell anyone about that dream after it happened?
No, I don't think I did. I don't think I even told my mom until like 2 or 3 years ago.
Wow. It's interesting. And it's interesting what people hold on to because you said like you still remember it, so it had to do something to you to make it memorable. Because there's a ton of dreams that we have when we wake up that we forget by the time we brush your teeth or go have breakfast. But this one is staying with you to this day, and so I'm glad you can get a little bit more understanding about maybe why, because it said like it was sitting there for a reason.
Yeah, definitely.
Have you had any other ones, any more positive ones ever, or no?
Not about Taylor. That was the only time I ever dreamt about her.
Wow.
But about my uncle, I guess so, yes.
So I guess it's a good time to. Do you want to talk about? Oh, is that no? Let's talk about the next loss after Taylor that you had.
Yeah.
So can you talk about that and who that was?
Yeah. So before Taylor died, we found out that my stepsister had terminal cancer as well, and she only had, I think they gave her like 9 months to live after that. So I think maybe 4-5 months after Taylor died, I actually found out from the school again that my stepsister Tegan had died as well from cancer. But this time I think it was just a bit different because I expected it. Like I knew she was going to die. So I was actually taken from my art class to like the head of the school and then told to call my mum. So I called my mum and she just told me that Tegan had passed away the night before and they'd put her in a coma so that she wasn't in pain. And then she just passed away easily overnight. And she asked me if I wanted to go to the funeral, but I think because I was still dealing with Taylor's death and had just been to that funeral, I just said no, like I can't do it again.
Yeah, that's understandable. It's like it's just like it's a double loss, a double whammy, and you said that you're still trying to process it and understand the reality of it, and it's hard to deal with too. It just opens up so much more. And so, do you ever have any regrets? Did you have any regrets not going, looking back?
Sometimes, but I think at the time it was a good decision to not go because I was still grieving a lot. And I feel like it definitely would have been just too much for me. I don't think my mum realised either. I don't think she realised how much Taylor's death had affected me. So that having Tegan's death on top of that, I was just a mess for the rest of my final year of high school, basically.
Wow. So, did you ever talk to anyone about it since you have the double loss? Did you ever talk to your family, or was it just something you tried to work on yourself?
I'm not very good at talking about my emotions with people, and I
You're
guess
doing a
I
good
just
job
try
now.
yes, but it's very hard.
Mhm.
I guess I was trying to deal with it on my own. And also I was just under this impression that, well, I wasn't that close to them, so I don't have like the right to grieve. Like, my stepdad obviously is grieving a lot more than me, and like everyone else is grieving a lot more than me. So I just sort of pushed it down and didn't really talk to anyone about it when I probably should have, because
Yeah.
like I said, I really struggled. But I guess I just didn't feel like I had anyone I could talk to about it that would be understanding. Like I felt like everyone would be judgmental of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And even in my life, I had uncles passed away when I was young, maybe less than a teenager. Yeah, for sure. And I remember similar feelings. Like no one, I mean, my parents talked to me a little bit, but overall, I felt compelled to kind of. It was less about having space for me to grieve and more about being there for, let's say, my mom if my uncle died, or her brother, or my dad. And I had those type of similar thoughts where it was more about, well, I'll let them. That's more for them. And I think, yeah, that's as a kid, again, there's not a lot of guidance, and you're learning, you're experiencing new things in the world and how to process things and how to, feel these emotions, a lot of them, especially revolving around death, that are new. So, it's yeah, I can definitely I feel similar in that story of not being able to maybe have a space designated for me at that time. Do you feel now? I mean, obviously you wrote about grief dreams, but is writing helping you kind of work through some of those things?
Yeah, I definitely think it did. I think doing the research as well has made me understand the grieving process a lot more as well, because I kind of look back on like the way I was and like why I was so upset all the time. Like, well, it makes a lot of sense now because I was grieving and I just didn't have anyone to sort of talk me through the process or the stages, and I just kept trying to continue on with my life without acknowledging any of it. So it's probably, yeah, it's definitely been like therapeutic, I suppose.
Oh, that's good. I'm really happy to hear that, and I'm really sad to hear about the different losses and to try to do it alone. That's it's almost the worst feeling to try to do that because it's very you don't know. And you said like what happens is we do things almost unconsciously because we're suppressing it. And so you say like you said anger. Is that what you said? You had anger?
Was I angry?
Yeah. Is that what you just said? I forgot. Was it anger that you had, or was it
I think I was just like upset a lot of the
upset?
time.
Okay, that's what you said.
Yeah.
Upset. Okay, yeah. Okay. All right. All right. So that's how it came out. It came out in sort of this like negative behavior towards others.
I think, yeah, not so much towards others, but like towards myself. Like I don't know, I guess I stopped trying at school and that affected me, but not enough that anyone could notice that I was struggling, I suppose. And I was just sad like a lot of the time. And there was no valid reason for why I was so upset that I could process as like being so young. Like I just didn't know what was happening.
Were you looking forward to maybe a change in life moving forward? Maybe, leaving the boarding school?
Yeah, I couldn't wait to get out of there and like start my real life.
Yeah, I'm just picturing like, going through that at your age and having that happen. So you're 16, 17, 18, what have you. It can put a real cloud over your head when you're going through school the last couple of years. Because I imagine like, you're pretty close with the people you go to class with. How big were the classes, or how many were in your school?
I think in my year level maybe like 300, maybe more. I'm not entirely sure. But being in the boarding house, I was pretty close to all the girls there, so that was
Yeah.
good. But I still didn't really feel comfortable telling them that I was struggling, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine it. And that's a small number of people, to be honest, because if you're spending that much time with them, that can get real intimate in
Yeah.
general. And you're around the same people in the same environments, and you feel a cloud over your head, and you've got these things going on, and seeing death at that early age can kind of take a little bit of the hope out of life, a little bit of the dream out of life. But I so at that point you were like, I'm ready. I'm ready to move on and go through this. And that's when you, I'm assuming, made that decision to go to Melbourne, University of Melbourne.
Yeah. So I went to school in New South Wales. So I actually moved back to Melbourne after I graduated. So it was definitely a good idea, and I was definitely very keen to move states and just to get out of that environment and to start fresh.
Wow. Yeah, it's interesting. You're right. Like the triggers of where the emotions are and like where you are and trying to move forward. Did you have a dream? I believe you did, of Tegan.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was like the night after that I found out or the night before, because my mum had been on the phone to me the day before telling me that Tegan was in a lot of pain and that she was screaming. So I actually had this dream that I was in the hospital with her, and I felt like I was in a familiar place, and I could see her in her bed, and she was just screaming and like grabbing onto the edges of the bed. Like clearly she was in pain, but there was like this curtain in front of me. Like it wasn't a real curtain. I don't know how to explain it. It was like a haze kind of, so that I couldn't get to her, and I just couldn't move and I couldn't reach her, and I just kept trying to get forward to help her because she was in so much pain, but I just couldn't get there. So that was the first dream I had of her.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like knowing the time, if you had it after, that makes sense of when your mom said it, and then it's just like you're replaying that memory and you just can't be there for
Yeah.
her, right? Yeah. If it was before, that's interesting too. It's a sad dream. It's a sad dream to have. That like I said, you can't be there for her, as you said, like, and you start suppressing your emotions with the grief. So have you had any more positive dreams of her afterwards, or is that it for Tegan?
I didn't dream about her for ages, and then about a month ago, I had a dream about her, which is really weird because it's been like 5-6 years now, and we lived together before I went to boarding school in this house in Tasmania. And I was in that house and all the furniture had gone and there was just this picture of her sitting like on the back of a couch, which is really strange. And I felt really scared, like, when like the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, that's how I was feeling. And so I said to the picture, I was like, "Are you here?" And then it just fell to the ground, like suddenly. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, like she's here." And I was like really afraid. So the picture like went back up onto the couch. I'm not sure how. And then I just said, "Are you angry?" And it didn't say anything and it didn't move. And then I just felt really calm and just started walking around the house. And everything looked the same, just no furniture. Then the next day I like messaged my mum and I was like, "Oh, I had this really weird dream about Tegan last night. Like I was in my old house." And she was just like, "Oh, like David just sold the house. So it must have been about that." And I had no idea that David had sold the house and there was new people moving in. So yeah, it was really weird.
Yeah, that's wild. So what did you take that afterwards to be?
I guess after I spoke to my mum, because my mum is like a big believer in like the spirits talking to you through your dreams. I was like, well, she must be telling us she's okay with the house being sold because it was her childhood home, like she grew up there. So yeah, I just took it as she was fine. She was moving on and that everything was okay. And I just felt so calm. So it was hard to not believe that she was telling me it was okay.
Oh, that's cool. That's great. And yeah, you forget like when like the parents would have had to sell that home and what that would have meant to them in their grief process of the memories of their child that would have been there. That's wild. And so you talked to your mom about these dreams? Like what does she say about these dreams?
She has also had these dreams. So she's told me about them as she's grown up. So I think I've always been very open to it. So yeah, she believes that it's like the person that's passed away talking to us or like giving us a message or something like that. So yeah, she's had a lot of her own experiences with them as well.
Growing up, did you think your mom was a little bit odd?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes I still do, but
I'm just wondering because my mom was like that when I was growing up. So there's moments where I was like, no one else in my family says things like this. So a little bit strange. But I think it's also like that probably, I think like that's one of the reasons I'm probably more open to the dream world because I had the experience of having a mom who talked about her dreams. So I could imagine. And you said that like that kind of like made you more open to it.
yeah, it was just me and her growing up. So I guess, I don't know, I just took it as normal. That it's normal to have these dreams. I don't know.
You're right, but people would have thought you were wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So how does she take these negative dreams? I know a lot of people who are spiritual, they'll take it as a visitation or they can, especially the positive dreams. But there's some people who take negative dreams as like a haunting or that something's wrong. Did your mom, like how does your mom think about those dreams?
I don't think I've ever actually spoken to her about like the negative ones that I've had. I guess because I just didn't want to have that conversation about why I had the dream and my emotions and things like that. But I don't think she's had any negative ones either. So, yeah, I don't know. I'd have to talk to her about it.
Yeah. Well, it's just interesting, right? Because a lot of times when people, like I've heard so many people, because all they hear is these positive dreams, and then when they have a negative one, it goes right towards that because they're not as common. So, like it's interesting, just interesting to sort of clarify that to see. I wonder what people do think about, or what she does think about that. And well, now you know about the research and stuff is a lot easier. But some people, I wonder if she would think it as a haunting or something. I don't know.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because I'm trying to think back when my mom, I think I was more hesitant to share negative things with my mom because I was worried she'd go in a negative thing. Like, like if, let's say I had like some dream about, spiders coming down or whatever, from my ceiling. That's a reoccurring dream. Anyways. Not anymore, but it was. But let's say that was, my horror, my dream. I'd be afraid my mom would say something like, well, it's because you don't clean your room or whatever, so she's associated with something in real life. But positive ones, like she definitely associated with like stuff. Like she, like if I saw my grandfather in a dream, she'd be like, oh, he's probably guiding you on something. So I definitely probably steered away from negative stuff.
Yeah, I think I just don't want to tell her the negative stuff in case she sort of clarifies what I'm thinking, that it's like negative and like the person's not okay. So yeah.
You got to do some ritual or something to
Yeah.
That's all. All right, so lastly, you want to move to your uncle? Yeah, your uncle who died. If you want to talk about maybe your relationship with him growing up, because I know we're going to show a picture of him and you in the and I guess in the advertisements, what it's called, the promotional material. So can you talk a little about like your relationship with him growing up?
Yeah, so I guess he was always sort of in and out of my life. So he would kind of have fights with the family and disappear for a bit. Also, he lived in a different state. So I think like my earliest memory was when I was about 7, which is when that photo's from. He came over to Melbourne. It was my 7th birthday, and they like threw a surprise party for me. So I had to like take him and like show him my toys and stuff. And then I came out and they'd set up a cake and everything. And that was like my earliest memory. But yeah, as I was growing up, he was kind of there, but not really there. He would sort of just come in when it was convenient for him, I guess. And then as I was going through high school for my 18th birthday, he reached out to me, and he was meant to come to my graduation and my deb, but he couldn't because he got a new job, and then he was in a motorbike accident. So after the accident, I actually went up to Queensland and stayed with him for about 2 weeks. But then he had a fight with my mum, so then there was a big fallout with the whole family again, and I was kind of just torn between him and my mum. So it was really hard because I wanted him in my life, but he kept coming and going, so I couldn't really have him in there. But yeah, that was the last time I saw him, was in Queensland about 5 years ago.
Well, yeah, that is tough because there's so many so much dynamics that you really don't have control over because you're going with whatever your mom's doing, right? And it's like you can't really see them without your mom knowing, and your mom may get mad or something. So, yeah, it's tough that I see it was in and out. And so, what happened how did you hear about the loss? First of all,
I was at work, so I worked in conservation, basically just planting trees. And I was sitting on the van back to the train station, and my grandma called me, and I was like, oh, I can't be bothered dealing with my grandma right now, so I didn't answer it. And then she kept calling me, and I was like, oh, there must be something wrong. So I answered at the train station, and she was just really calm, and it was just so strange. And she was just like, oh, Uncle Chris has died. And my first thought was, oh, it must have been a motorbike accident. And then I was like, oh, how? And she was just like, he hung himself. And those are her exact words. And I just remember her just being so calm as she told me. And I was like, oh, okay, well, like, does mum know? And she was just like, no. So I had to try and contact my mum, but I was at the train station in a public area, and I just hate crying in public. So the whole time until I got home, I was like, just don't cry, just don't cry. And then my boyfriend at the time picked me up at the train station. I got in the car, and I just burst into tears, and I just kept saying it was my fault, it's my fault. And then he just, like boyfriend just didn't know what to do. He was just in utter shock. So yeah, and then I spent the next maybe like 2 hours trying to contact my mum to tell her what had happened, because she lives in like a rural area where there's not much service. So I actually had to call her neighbor to go over and knock on her door to get her to call me so that I could tell her what had happened.
Wow, that's a horrifying way to find out, and just the way you said, like the way it was said too, like the lack of emotion stuff. It's just like it's hard to process it all. And so, why did you think it was your fault?
I started talking to him again like a year beforehand because I was going overseas. So we started to develop a relationship again, and I said to him, do not let the family drama like affect our relationship. Like, you can have a fight with mum, but don't let it affect your relationship with me. But he did, so we stopped talking again, and the last time I spoke to him, I just had a fight with him, and I blocked him on everything, and I was just being a brat. Like, there was no reason for me to like get that angry at him. So I guess, and he'd spoken to me about like his depression and like how much he was struggling. So I knew about it, and I felt like I should have just been there for him and just like I blocked him. Like even if he wanted to talk to me, he couldn't have. So I think it was just that guilt that I could have helped him, but I didn't.
Right. I understand that. Yeah. Wow. Wow. And so how have you worked through that? Because you're talking about it now, which tells me that you've done some work. You're not suppressing it. So how did you work through those emotions or those feelings?
I think just time just made it easier. And as I've grown older, obviously I'm looking back and I'm like, well, it wouldn't have been my fault. Like he was struggling. He chose to do what he did because he just couldn't do it anymore. Like it was his choice, and I'm sure he's in a happier place now. Like I don't think anyone could have stopped him because he tried before and he wasn't getting better. So yeah, you can't really blame anyone. It's just his choice in the end.
That's a very difficult situation to live through, and it honestly reminded me of my childhood where there was family members that were in and out of my life, uncles that would come and go, and as a child you're helpless, like Josh said, and it's not in your control, and it's sad because as a child, for me, I just wanted to be a normal and b have a relationship with uncles, that because if for the most part I had positive memories of them. But, there'd be like stretches where, oh, our parents aren't talking to each other. So it's like 2, 3 years where I'm not seeing anybody, not seeing my cousins, not seeing my uncles. And again, it was a part of my life that I felt like something was missing. Did you feel like that? Where like because you didn't get to have, I guess, the relationship that you wanted with your uncle, that that part wasn't quite there, what you wanted it to be?
Yeah, I guess I just felt very alone as I was growing up because it was just me and my mum. Um, so to have that extra person was always really comforting. And like I always found that I was very similar to him, like the way he like handled his emotions and things like that is very similar to me. So he was just very good to talk to, and he provided like a lot of guidance to me. So when he was in my life, it was great because I could send him my uni assignments and he would help edit them for me, and like it was just really helpful having that extra person that I felt like I could go to for support.
Yeah, and that's what you want out of family, right? Like you see people around you, and people have whatever that you don't have. What if you're missing a parent? You see people with parents, that can be tough. You go in life and you see people with uncles and aunts and great family situations, and you look at yours and you're like, wow, I never got to experience that. And especially with if it's just you and your mom, that's probably something that you really yearned for, and you worked on it. You definitely worked on it because some kids might not reach out to family members or uncles and stuff, but you said, you know what, I'm gonna give it a shot and try to build this relationship, even when your mom wasn't. So I think that's takes a lot of courage. So kudos for you for that. That takes courage to want to build that relationship.
Yeah, it was hard at the time, and I felt like I couldn't really tell my mum that I was talking to him, so that made it even harder.
Wow.
Wow. And then so you had a dream. Was it soon after like the other two dreams? Like it was like the next day? Like or did it take a little longer to have the first dream of him?
Um, yeah, I think it was maybe 2 days after I like went home to my mum's so I could like help her, and I just had this dream that I was planting trees because my contract had just ended, so I didn't have a job, so I was really stressed that I wasn't going to get another job, and I was just running around planting these trees, and like I heard his voice, like I couldn't see him, but it was like coming from behind me, and he was just saying like it's gonna be okay, like I'm gonna help you, like you're gonna get another job, like it's gonna be okay. And I was like, no, no, stop, like you don't need to keep helping me, like because he would always help and like give money when like he wasn't in a position where he could. So I was like, no, you just rest, like it's fine, like I'm gonna be okay. And he's just like, no, 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 like I'm gonna help you. And then like the dream just started to fade away, and I woke up, and then maybe like a week later, I got another job. So it was super weird.
That's wild. That's actually really exciting.
Yeah.
Is that the job you have now, or what job was it?
Yeah, still the same job.
Oh, okay. That's pretty cool. And so how'd you like in the beginning, you're probably like, oh, I don't know, like if that's true or not, because you have so much doubt, right? So much fear that you won't get one. So what was the experience like when you got the job looking back at the dream?
Um, I guess there is a part of me that thinks that he was looking out for me because, like, through this job, I've just met these people that have really helped me through the journey, because I started the job maybe like a month after he'd passed away. So, yeah, I was pretty excited when I got the job. At first, I was kind of like, oh, I don't know if I should believe my dream. Like, maybe I'm just a bit insane. Like, I don't know. But I like to believe that he helped me in some way.
Well, it's nice. It's nice, like, feeling that continuing bond, because you said you're spiritual, and it's nice to have that idea, in your mind. And like, I have that with my dad all the time. Like, even graduating or doing the talks I do, is feeling him near me and feeling him being there. That I'm not walking this journey alone. I think that's the most scariest thing for me, is to think about, like, it's like him being dead and just gone. Like, for me, it's like, no, he's still there and he's helping me, and that's what I think brings the bond closer together, is that I know that, I'm not alone still, even though he's not here physically present, that he's still doing some things. He's probably helping in different ways to achieve some goals and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just like I said, another way to continue that bond. And you mentioned too in your article that, like, he represents owls. So, like, when you see owls, that is like a sign that, or something that you remember him at or with.
Yeah, he really liked owls. So I guess this comes from my mum as well. After he passed away, she went into like her friend's shed, and there was just this owl sitting there, like this real owl, and it didn't move. It just stared at her, and she walked closer to it, and it just didn't move. And so I think now she believes that was like my uncle, like saying goodbye, I guess, or hello, or just saying that he's okay. So now whenever I see an owl, I just think that, like, he's telling me something's okay. And I just always happen to see one, like, as I'm about to go into an interview, or if I'm going through a difficult time, like, I just see an owl and I just know that it's going to be okay, which is really weird, but I guess it makes me feel better.
No, it's good, right? I love it. I love that feeling. I love that you're getting, I said, more confidence, and you're feeling more at peace in stressful situations because of that connection. And that's really, you look at, that's the benefit of it, and that's the beauty of it for you in your life. And you're not crazy. I hear it's all, like, I hear a lot of people like do this stuff. So it's like, you're really embracing that and just smiling and remembering that, for a lot of people, it's that you're still loved and you're still supported, as much as, this crazy world. There's so much stress, there's so many decisions to make, and there's a lot of unknowns that we can sort of feel like we're just lost. But like, these moments can actually bring you back to, like, no, like, there's still people. This world isn't all crazy in the sense of just like random stuff. Like, there's some things going on that, maybe just don't know, and to sit in that presence of that. And so that's what you're talking about. So I'm really happy you have developed that bond. Do you feel that your bond is maybe, I don't know, better or different now that he's died, with all the stuff that's going on through your dreams and through the owls?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think in some way I feel a bit closer because I feel like he's here with me sometimes. Yeah, I feel like I've just gotten to understand him better, and like why he did the things he did, because I've thought about it so much. And through the dreams as well, I feel like my emotions have just become a lot calmer about the whole situation. And yeah, it's just helped me understand like why it happened, why he was in and out so much, I guess.
Well, that's good. So I'm glad that you found a way. I found a way to, I guess, heal a little bit and find some peace, because I said, like, the losses throughout the beginning of your life it's hard. It's hard, and it's hard to actually deal with them as you move forward, because when you suppress them, you start like building blocks on top of them, and it takes a little while to actually get to them. So it's nice how you're feeling this peace now, and you can talk about it on the podcast, and you can write assignments on it. So I can only imagine, what this can do to just help you, to sort of just sharing this stuff now rather than keeping it all in.
Yeah, yeah, there was definitely a time where I wasn't sharing it and I was just keeping it all in. But I guess about a year ago I started talking about it more, and it's definitely helped being able to talk about it and being able to like write about it as well to help me understand my grief.
That's beautiful. No, it's beautiful to see. I always love seeing people grow and start healing from their loss, because it's a lifelong process, but it's like, we got to get started sooner or later. And it's nice how you found a way. to do that and to continue going. What kind of advice would you give people who, or maybe even your younger self that was going through this loss? So what do you give like young people that have suffered a loss now, looking back? Like, what would you want? Like, what would you have said to yourself or to someone else in your situation?
Probably just it's okay to grieve. Like it's okay to be upset, even if there's other people you think are more worthy to be upset. Like it's perfectly normal to feel those emotions and to share those emotions with just at least one person and like just talk about it. I think talking about it is the only thing that's really going to help you get through it.
That's nice. No, I like that. You're right. Like even for me, when I lost my dad, I never talked about it. And I think that was part of the problem because I went through depression for about 3 months there, and it was only a dream that really brought me back. So, I can understand that what you're saying, and that's great advice for me too. I would I'd probably give myself. And now, like we're talking about it all the time. It's so crazy because like you're almost sometimes so afraid to share it, but then all of a sudden you start, and then you just can't stop. Like there's something that happens when you do share it. I don't really know exactly what, but it said there is some kind of healing process, and also it allows you to talk about them, right? Like by talking about them, you're talking about the loss in a way too. So I'm glad we're getting to know some of the people that have died over your life, and the struggles you had with relationships and grieving for those relationships, because I think it's a great message to say to people that just because you're not close or you weren't close or you're fighting, it doesn't mean that there's no grief, there's no sorrow. Like we are complex human beings, and every relationship touches us in a different way. And what you're saying is that this is almost like a disenfranchised grief where a lot of people wouldn't acknowledge you, but at the end of the day it infected you. And so I'm glad you're talking about it because it raises awareness on the topic.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I guess it's just like a journey. You have to get through it. And yeah, the more people you have to talk to about it with, like you said, it helps you process it, and then you can talk about the person. Like I know I struggled to talk about my uncle. So whenever someone would, like I have this bracelet that I wear, so whenever someone would ask me about it, I'd just be like, oh, it's just a present, when it was like a present from him. I just didn't want to get into the whole story. So now, yeah, I'm definitely more comfortable talking about what happened and just him in general.
Yeah, and I think that's great that you're getting more comfortable talking about it, because I think like that's you're continuing a bond with them through your dreams, and hopefully and hopefully it's changed a bit for you in the positive, that relationship. And I know you mentioned that a little bit. And it can be difficult as well, I think, given the how old you are, is a lot of times those conversations just don't come up when you're at that age. Going to a house party or something. I mean, unless you're Joshua Black, you don't really talk about death or loss. Uh, but yeah, I think that's a good service though at the same time, because there probably are people like you who have also experienced loss, who are your age, who maybe feel the same way, and maybe didn't get to grieve like you. So I think this is good, and hopefully if any of those people are listening, then they can take some good advice from you.
Yeah, yeah. I know like a few people my age who've been through death, but I definitely feel like it's not something we want to talk about. Like you said, we're not going to go to a club and start talking about the people that have died. So
unless if you're me, I went to Sean's quick story. I went to Sean's housewarming party once, and people ask, what do you do, right? So I mentioned, of course, like the grief dream stuff, and that's what I was researching. And then so there's a person there that lost her brother, and so we had a real deep conversation about grief at this party. And like you could tell people were walking away, other people started being interested, but no one wanted to say anything. And but it was really cool at the end. She was having these dreams, and we really talked about the bond she had, and it was about a good probably hour and a half just chatting about this. And you could tell it was something that she really wanted to talk about. And the friend that she had brought didn't even know she lost her brother. So like for me, I'm like, that's crazy. But this is the truth, how a lot of people want to talk about this stuff, but they just don't have the space to. And that's why I'm so happy with Sean, like starting this podcast. Like we get a chance to hear these stories all the time. He doesn't need to have a housewarming party every
That wasn't
week.
even the story I was thinking about. That's the crazy thing, is he does this so much at parties. That wasn't even the one I was thinking about. I was thinking of the one with your friend who moved to California and you ended up asking her about her brother who passed away at a party.
Same one, isn't it?
No, that's my party. You're at some other party. Let's just say there's multiple times. Even at grocery stores, he'll start up conversations. But that's obviously the good thing that I like about him, because not a lot of people will do that, right? I mean, you've experienced this, Nikki. Especially at your age, people just they just don't get into those type of heavy conversations. But I think, again, I that doesn't mean I don't think there are people who want to. So I think, like you, could be a good advocate, and just, again, if someone asks about your bracelet, I think you starting to tell that story, I think it does something for them and for you probably.
Yeah, I think so. Like, I do want to talk about it, I guess, but yeah, I guess I'm just worried about the reaction of the other person if I'm like, oh, yeah, it's my uncle, like he passed away. And the fact that it was suicide as well, it's like one of those topics where you tell someone and they're just awkward silence and you don't really know how to start the conversation, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, just by mentioning him would be, I think, a good start. And you never know, they could have their own loss that it connects with. And that's what happens. That's why I love just bringing it up, because you can tell right away if someone's interested or if they further the conversation. You could tell they've suffered a loss themselves, and all of a sudden it turns into this sort of like, I don't know, this energy where like you're sharing and you're hearing each other's loss stories. But like I think there's a lot of people that are longing for that, to tell you the truth, and they're waiting for an opening or someone brave enough to talk about it first, and then they're willing to talk about it. Like there's a lot of people that are afraid, as you're saying. But once you have a person that's strong enough to be able to bring up that conversation, it's amazing what happens. As you say, like I'll talk to people in the grocery store. Like it's just it's just like, because everyone suffered usually a loss in their life, and so there's just certain people, and you can tell. Like you don't have to like go into the whole story right away, but just bringing it up and making it an awareness of it, that it's from your uncle who died, that can open the door to see if there is further questions from the person or not.
Yeah. I was just gonna say that's a great point, and that's so funny you say that. Like I think about that a lot. Whereas people seem to put they put their lives into categories, and there's a time and a place for things, and people have determined that death is not a good time. Death is not something you want to talk about in most situations. But like my question is, where's the right time? Where are we allocated in society where we can have these conversations? Right? You don't think about that. You just think about where it's not appropriate. The dentist office, grocery store.
I guess now they have Death Cafe, so I guess that'd be the place. Yeah, that's the only place.
That's what we need to do.
It's funny. All right, so Nikki, we have one last question to ask you before we wrap up this podcast, and that is, if you could have one dream tonight of anyone who has died, who would that be, and what would that dream look like to you?
Oh, that's really hard. I guess it would be of my uncle. Like, I guess I still question if he's all right and if he's like happy and moved on. So I guess I would just hope to dream of him like telling me that he's okay and telling me that it's okay to move on with my life and that he's a lot happier now.
And so where would you want this dream to take place? Would it be is there a location that you guys found good, or do you want to be in like space, or where do you want to be?
I feel like probably just in Queensland, where I last saw him. I feel like it's sunny there, and yeah.
Outside, some owls nearby.
Yeah.
Would you want him as an owl or no?
No, just out there.
A quick side question: do you guys have large owls? Or like, what are they? How big are they? I imagine they're medium or small.
Yeah, I think they're medium. I don't know. I don't really know much about owl size.
Because they're amazing predators. So I'm just thinking about all the nice spiders and snakes they're gonna be eating up.
Oh, that's true. Actually, yeah.
Doing a good service over there. Yeah, in general, animals tend to grow larger in colder climates. So you probably have like a medium to smaller size owl over there. If anybody wants to email me, a biologist, animal sanctuary person, just let me know.
You tell you watch a lot of Natural Geographic stuff.
To be honest, and I don't mean to defer even more, but I didn't even know there were owls. I thought they didn't really have many predators in Australia. Very interesting.
There's definitely owls here.
Okay. I believe you.
I mean, you can Google it if you really want to.
No, I trust you. Nikki's got the facts.
That's funny. Will you be posting or your essay anywhere for people to read, or no? Do you have a...
I'm not sure. I haven't decided yet.
Nice.
Now that you've done the hard test of showing it to your class, I think you can show it to the world. That's a small step.
Yeah, I just wouldn't really know where to post it other than Facebook.
Well, if he's, Joe, I'm sure we can put on the Facebook.
Yeah,
group,
we can.
right?
We can put it on our platform if you want. If you want to send it to us, that's cool. No pressure. Just feel it out and see what you want to do. But I want to actually ask: do you have it there with you or no?
No, not right now.
Because you had you did a couple of really amazing it was like poetry, I guess, small quotes within there.
Yeah.
And I thought they were really nice that dealt with dreams.
Yeah, I like writing poetry more than actual writing, but there was a word limit, so I couldn't do all poetry.
Do you have a poem on the top of your head that reminds you of your uncle? I know we're putting you on the spot, but...
I actually wrote one about him, but I don't have it with me, and I don't know it off the top of my head.
All right, well, maybe you can send it to us, or maybe we can have you on again, and we can do that. Because, yeah, I'd love to hear it.
Okay, I'll send it to you. Maybe.
Sweet. All right, Nikki, this was very fun, and again, it was really enjoyable speaking with you, and there was a couple things in there that I really felt the same kind of things, especially when I was younger, when it came down to experiencing loss when I was in high school, and also kind of not really having a steady relationship with family and uncles. That really touched me, and I think it means a lot that you tried to reconnect and have that relationship with him. He's obviously going through a tough time and had some pain in his life. And hopefully moving forward, I think you can continue to build that bond somehow in a positive way. So again, Nikki, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it. So people can check out our platform at griefdreams.ca for more information on the topic. We added a donation button, and there were perks to those who donate. And thank you so much to everybody who has taken the time out to donate. We really appreciate it. If you have Facebook, you can join the Grief Dreams group. You can share your dreams or hear more dreams of others. We are on Twitter and Instagram at Grief Dreams. And as always, we like to end the podcast with love and gratitude from us to you.
I have questions. I have introduced myself. You have introduced yourself. This is a very good conversation.